The internet is on fire right now because music mogul Sean Diddy Combs has just been sentenced to 50 months in prison. And nobody saw this coming. Fans are in absolute shock. The industry is buzzing with disbelief. And insiders are whispering that this is only the beginning of a storm that could shake the entire entertainment world. What could possibly bring down one of hip-hop's most powerful figures? Reports are pouring in, filled with rumors of secret betrayals, explosive courtroom moments, and friends turn to enemies pointing fingers. Some say justice has finally caught up to him. Others insist it's all part of a massive setup, one that goes deeper than anyone can imagine. Cameras caught Diddy leaving the courthouse in silence, his expression unreadable, while his family stood by him in tears. Others avoiding the press altogether. Social media exploded within minutes. Celebrities who once called him brother are now distancing themselves, deleting old photos and issuing carefully worded statements. But beneath the headlines lies a story of broken trust. Desperate loyalty and one man's empire crumbling under the weight of secrets long buried. What really happened behind the scenes? Tonight we're diving into this scandal that has everyone asking, how did Diddy end up here? When the news first broke that Diddy had been sentenced to 50 months in prison, the world simply refused to believe it. The headlines flashed across every screen, the words almost too surreal to process. Fans were glued to their phones, refreshing social media for updates, hoping it was all some elaborate rumor. But it wasn't. The once untouchable king of hip-hop. The man who built an empire out of swagger, style, and sheer willpower was being led away in handcuffs. And the cameras didn't miss a single frame. Outside the courthouse, chaos erupted. Reporters shouted questions, camera flashes burst like lightning, and people screamed his name, some in anger, others in heartbreak. Diddy kept his head down, his jaw tight, his lips pressed into a thin line. Beside him, his longtime friend and bodyguard tried to shield him from the madness, but it was no use. The crowd was too wild, too emotional. It felt like the end of an era playing out in real time. How did it come to this? Someone in the crowd shouted, and that question echoed across every corner of the internet. The rumors had been swirling for months, whispers of shady deals, betrayal among his closest circle, and a secret that could destroy his legacy. But no one thought it would actually lead to this. People who once idolized him began to question everything they thought they knew. Inside sources claimed the case against Diddy wasn't just about money or fame. It was personal. It started, they said, with someone from his inner circle turning against him. An insider, a confidant, someone who knew too much. That someone, according to leaks, was none other than Marcus Reed, Diddy's former right-hand man and lifelong friend. They had been inseparable for years, building the empire together from the ground up. Marcus was there through every success, every scandal, every award show after party. But somewhere along the line, something broke. Jealousy crept in, trust started to crack, and before long, Marcus became the prosecution's star witness. In court, he didn't hold back. "I tried to stay loyal," he said, his voice trembling under the weight of the moment. "But loyalty means nothing when your name's on the line." The audience gasped. Diddy looked at him like he was staring at a stranger. That moment, they said, changed everything. From there, the courtroom became a stage for one of the most dramatic trials in music history. Each day brought new revelations, shocking testimonies, and emotional breakdowns. Diddy's legal team fought tooth and nail, painting him as a victim of a coordinated smear campaign. They said the charges were exaggerated, the witnesses coached, and the evidence circumstantial. But the prosecution told a different story of arrogance, control, and a man who thought he was untouchable. Fans watched every update like a serialized drama. Hashtags trended daily. One minute, people were calling him a monster. The next, they were defending him, demanding justice for what they saw as a witch hunt. Even celebrities couldn't stay quiet. Some of his oldest friends, like Mary J., Blige, and Farrell, posted cryptic messages about betrayal and truth. Others distanced themselves completely, refusing to comment at all. But it wasn't just the public that was divided. Diddy's own family was falling apart behind the scenes. Insiders revealed that his children, who had always stood by him, were now struggling to understand the man behind the headlines. Justin was furious, claiming the media had twisted everything. Chance refused to speak to reporters but was reportedly seen crying outside the courtroom on the day of the verdict. And the twins' barely teenagers were kept away from the chaos altogether. Kim Porter's family, too, was drawn into the storm. Whispers began resurfacing about her mysterious death years ago, reigniting old suspicions and online theories. The internet went wild, connecting dots that maybe weren't even there. One tweet read, "Everything's finally coming to light." Amid all the noise, Diddy remained mostly silent. No statements, no interviews, no emotional outbursts. Only a few close friends claimed he'd broken down in private, saying they don't know what's real anymore. But the silence didn't last. 3 weeks into the trial, a leaked phone recording surfaced online. In it, a voice that sounded unmistakably like Diddy's could be heard arguing with Marcus. "You think you can turn on me and walk away clean?" The voice said. "You have no idea what you're doing." Clips spread like wildfire. Some said it was doctored, others said it was the smoking gun. The damage, however, was done. Public opinion shifted overnight. Hashtags calling for accountability flooded social media. Fans who once screamed his name were now questioning his every move. In court the next day, the prosecution played the clip for the jury. Diddy's expression didn't change, but his defense team looked visibly shaken. They tried to argue the audio was manipulated. But it was too late. The seed of doubt had been planted, and then came another blow. Cassie, his former partner, appeared in court. No one had expected it. She had kept her distance from the spotlight for years, but that day, she walked into the courtroom in silence. Her face calm, but her eyes heavy. When she took the stand, the room went silent. Her testimony was emotional. She spoke about the good times, the success, the dreams they built together, but also the darkness that came with it. "I loved him," she said quietly, "but love doesn't mean ignoring what's wrong." It was the moment that broke the internet. Fans didn't know who to believe anymore. Some stood by her, praising her courage. Others accused her of betrayal, saying she was only there for attention by the end of that week. Diddy's image was in shambles. Endorsements dropped. Partnerships dissolved. Streaming numbers plummeted. The man who once defined luxury and power was now being portrayed as the villain in a real-life tragedy. And yet, deep inside, there were still those who refused to give up on him. One insider claimed Diddy was preparing a statement that would change everything, a confession or revelation that would flip the narrative on its head. Behind bars, waiting for his sentencing, Diddy allegedly spent hours writing in a notebook, sketching out names, events, and timelines, piecing together what he believed was a conspiracy against him. According to close sources, he told his lawyer, "If I go down, I'm not going alone." Rumors spread that he planned to expose a network of powerful figures connected to his downfall: industry executives, political donors, even rival artists. But whether those threats were real or just desperate words from a broken man, no one knew. As the first month of the trial came to a close, the energy around the case shifted. Journalists began digging deeper, uncovering strange inconsistencies in the testimonies, hidden bank transfers, and a series of mysterious meetings between Marcus and certain record label insiders. It was as if the story itself was starting to twist, revealing layers that no one saw coming. And then, just when it seemed things couldn't get more chaotic, an anonymous email was sent to multiple media outlets containing documents labeled Project Nightfall. The files allegedly, connected to Diddy's empire, hinted at secret dealings, off-the-books payments, and a list of names that no one dared to say out loud. The internet went into a frenzy. Fans speculated endlessly about what Project Nightfall meant. Was it the key to his empire, the weapon that destroyed it? That's when people began to realize that maybe this wasn't just a story about one man's downfall. Maybe it was something much bigger. and as the judge prepared to deliver the final verdict, the world waited, breath held, wondering if the truth would finally come out, or if the biggest secrets were still buried deep within the shadows of fame. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the final lines of the verdict, each word sinking into the heavy air like stones dropping into water. 50 months. 50 months behind bars for one of the most influential men in the music industry. Diddy sat motionless, staring straight ahead, his hands clasped tightly together on the table. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. Reporters didn't breathe, fans outside didn't blink, and even the cameras stopped clicking. It was a moment that marked the end of an empire, perhaps, the beginning of its most dangerous chapter. As soon as the gavel hit the desk, the room erupted into chaos. People shouted, some cried, others cursed under their breath. The prosecution hugged each other in relief, while Diddy's legal team gathered their papers in stunned silence. His lawyer, Jerome Winters, leaned close and whispered something to him, but Diddy didn't respond. He simply rose, straightened his jacket, and turned toward the exit. The marshals stepped forward to escort him out, but not before he turned back to face the courtroom gallery. His eyes scanned the faces, friends, family, reporters, and somewhere in the back, Marcus Reed. Their eyes met for only a second. Marcus looked down immediately, guilt flickering across his face. Diddy's expression remained unreadable, but those who knew him best said it was the look of a man who had finally realized just how deep the betrayal ran. Outside, the crowd had grown into a mob. People were chanting, shouting, holding up signs, some that read "Justice" and others that said "Free Diddy." The divide was sharp and painful. One woman screamed, "He didn't deserve this," while another yelled back, "He got what was coming to him." The police struggled to keep order as reporters pushed through 4 statements. But the one statement that shocked everyone came not from Diddy, but from Cassie. Within hours of the sentencing, she released a message on social media that read, "Sometimes justice isn't about revenge, it's about peace." The post instantly went viral. Thousands of comments flooded in. Some praised her bravery, others accused her of adding fuel to the fire. And while the world debated, something strange began happening behind the scenes. A former producer from Bad Boy Records came forward with claims that the trial had been manipulated. He said that evidence was withheld, witnesses were threatened, and one of the key testimonies had been paid off. "It's bigger than him," the producer said in an interview that quickly spread online. He was just the first domino to fall. That statement reignited everything. Conspiracy theories exploded again. People began revisiting the mysterious Project Nightfall documents. What if Diddy was right? What if he really was being framed? Meanwhile, inside the detention center, Diddy's first few nights were reportedly unbearable. Guards described him as silent, distant, and unresponsive. He refused meals, avoided conversations, and spent most of his time writing in that same worn-out notebook. One guard claimed to have seen pages filled with names, arrows, and question marks. Another said he overheard Diddy muttering, "They think it's over, but I've got the truth." And the strangest thing, 3 days after he arrived, Marcus Reed's home was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but his laptop and phone were both destroyed. The police called it a random robbery, but the timing was too perfect to ignore. Fans immediately connected it to Diddy. He's sending a message. One post said, "Even from inside, he's still in control." The media ate it up. Nightly talk shows dissected every theory, podcasts debated every possibility, and social media couldn't stop buzzing. Some said Diddy had dirt on half the industry and that his silence was a form of leverage. Others claimed powerful people were working behind the scenes to make sure he never spoke again. But then came another twist. One night, a mysterious video appeared on a private channel and began spreading across encrypted messaging groups. It showed a dimly lit room, a man's silhouette, and a distorted voice saying Project Nightfall wasn't supposed to leak. It was only the beginning. Everything you've heard about Diddy's case, just one piece. The video vanished within hours, taken down before it reached the mainstream. But by then, screenshots had already spread. Fans compared the silhouette to Diddy himself, while others argued it was an imposter trying to stir chaos. Still, the message sent chills down everyone's spine as the weeks passed. Life outside moved on, but the story refused to die. Every celebrity interview, every award show, every red carpet moment somehow circled back to Diddy. His name became synonymous with scandal and power. Back at the detention center, something began to change. Diddy started to talk again. According to an insider, he began mentoring younger inmates, organizing discussions about ambition and loyalty. He's rebuilding himself, the insider said. He's planning something. But not everyone believed his transformation. One correctional officer reported that he overheard Diddy on a phone call saying, "They think I'm done, but I'm just getting started." Around that same time, Cassie was seen leaving a private meeting with federal investigators. Reporters asked her if it was related to Diddy, but she stayed silent. Still, the timing raised eyebrows. Whispers spread that a new investigation was opening. One that might expose the people behind Diddy's downfall, and right when it seemed things were quieting down. A shocking report surfaced. A financial leak revealed that Marcus Reed had received a large payment just weeks before he testified against Diddy. The money came from an offshore account linked to a major entertainment executive, a man who had publicly feuded with Diddy in the past. Suddenly, the narrative flipped again. People started questioning everything. Fans demanded a retrial, saying the case had been tainted by corruption. Even a few former critics began to wonder if Diddy had been set up. The pressure grew. So intense that the judge was forced to release a statement denying any misconduct. But the damage was already done. The internet had chosen its new obsession, uncovering the truth. Meanwhile, inside prison, Diddy received a letter that changed everything. It was unsigned, written in careful handwriting, and it said only 3 words: "They're watching you." No one knew who sent it. Diddy showed it to his lawyer, who dismissed it as a prank. But those who saw him afterward said something in him shifted. He became even more private, more calculating. Then, out of nowhere, reports surfaced that Diddy had been attacked inside the facility. Officials called it a minor altercation, but insiders said it was a warning. One inmate reportedly told a journalist, "Someone wants him silent, permanently." Still, Diddy refused to back down. In a phone interview with a magazine, he said, "They can lock me up, but they can't bury the truth." The statement went viral. It became a rallying cry for his supporters, who started using the hashtag #TruthWillRise. Outside the prison walls, things took another wild turn. A leaked document from an independent journalist suggested that the Project Nightfall files were part of a larger investigation involving multiple record labels, politicians, and financial backers. It hinted that Diddy's trial might have been orchestrated to distract the public from something much darker, a massive cover-up that could rock the entire entertainment industry. By now, everyone was hooked. Fans turned into amateur detectives, connecting dots and building timelines. YouTube was flooded with videos claiming to reveal the real story behind Project Nightfall. Some went so far as to claim that the original evidence against Diddy was fabricated by a secret task force of industry insiders. And while all this unfolded, Marcus Reed disappeared from the public eye. No interviews, no statements, nothing. His social media accounts were deleted, and rumors began swirling that he had fled the country. But a month later, a photo surfaced showing him in Los Angeles looking tense, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, walking into a building known for housing federal offices. Theories exploded again. Was he cooperating with the government? Was he being protected? Or was he next on someone's list? Back in prison, Diddy kept writing in his notebook. The pages now filled with connections that stretched beyond the music world. He reportedly told a fellow inmate, "They think I'm the villain, but when the truth comes out, the world's gonna see who the real players are." And that's when the first whispers began, that maybe Diddy wasn't planning to serve all 50 months. Maybe he had something so powerful, so dangerous, that it could buy his freedom. Something that could bring down everyone who had betrayed him. No one could confirm it. But one thing was clear, the story was far from over. And as the tension built, the entire industry began to hold its breath, wondering what would happen next. And what secrets were still waiting to be uncovered in the shadows of Project Nightfall, the night before Diddy's official appeal hearing. The air outside the federal prison was thick with tension. Dozens of fans gathered near the gates, holding signs that read "Justice for Diddy" and "Set the Truth Free." News vans lined the streets, their satellite dishes pointed skyward, ready to broadcast whatever might happen next. Inside, Diddy sat alone in his cell, the dim light casting long shadows across the concrete walls. In front of him lay his notebook, worn, creased, and filled with words that could change everything. He flipped through the pages slowly, his mind replaying every betrayal, every lie, every face that had turned away from him when things got dark. Marcus, Cassie, the industry executives who once toasted champagne in his penthouse, but now acted like they'd never known him. The silence of those he'd helped rise to fame cut deeper than any headline. He whispered to himself, 50 months. That's what they gave me. 50 months to think. But I've already served enough time in lies. As dawn approached, he met with his lawyer, Jerome Winters. Through a glass window, Jerome looked exhausted. The appeal's risky, Jerome said quietly. The new evidence might not hold in court. They're saying Project Nightfall is nothing but a distraction. They're lying, Diddy replied, his voice steady. That file is the reason I'm in here. If we can trace the money from Marcus's payoff, everything changes. Jerome hesitated. And if we can't? Then I'll make sure the world finds out another way, Diddy said, leaning forward. They think I don't have backup, but I do. They just don't know where it is. Later that afternoon, the hearing began. Fans crowded outside the courthouse again, holding their phones high, live streaming every update. Inside, tension filled the air as the judge reviewed the new documents allegedly linked to Project Nightfall. The prosecution dismissed them as fabricated nonsense. But then, something unexpected happened. A mysterious figure entered the courtroom, escorted by federal agents. Gasps filled the room when people realized who it was. Marcus Reed. No one had seen him in months. The man who had once betrayed Diddy was now back, looking pale, nervous, and visibly shaken. Mr. Reed has requested to make a statement. The judge announced on a murmur spread through the courtroom like a wave. Cameras clicked rapidly as Marcus stepped up to the stand. He cleared his throat, his voice trembling at first. I lied, he said. Not about everything, but enough to send a man to prison. The entire room erupted in chaos. Reporters shouted, people gasped, and Diddy closed his eyes slowly, a deep breath escaping him like a release of years of tension. I didn't do it for money. Marcus continued, not at first, but they came to me. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd ruin me too. They had proof photos, documents, messages. They said I had no choice. Who? The judge asked sharply. Marcus looked terrified. I can't say their names, he whispered, because they're still watching. But they're powerful. And Project Nightfall, it's not just a file. It's a system. It tracks payments, favors, and connections across the industry. Everything's in there. Gasps filled the courtroom again. The judge demanded specifics. But before Marcus could answer, two federal agents approached the bench and whispered something urgent. The judge called a recess. Moments later, Marcus was escorted out under heavy protection. Outside the courthouse, reporters lost control. Microphones, cameras, drones, all fighting for a piece of the story. Back in prison, news of Marcus's statement reached Diddy within minutes. Inmates cheered, chanting his name down the corridors. Some believed he'd finally be free. Others warned him that exposing whoever was behind Project Nightfall could come with a deadly price. Later that night, Dad received a coded message through a letter, no name, no signature. It said, "You opened the door. Now walk carefully. They won't let you tell the story." The next morning, chaos struck. Marcus Reed was found unconscious in his safe house, his bodyguard missing. And the official report claimed an attempted suicide. But those close to him insisted it didn't add up. One insider said Marcus was scared, but he wasn't broken. Someone wanted to silence him. Diddy's appeal was immediately postponed pending new developments. His lawyer was furious, calling it a cover-up. "Someone doesn't want this case reopened," Jerome told reporters. "Every time we get close to the truth, someone disappears or evidence goes missing." But that didn't stop the story from spreading. Social media exploded again. Fans demanded to know who was behind Project Nightfall. Hashtags like Free Diddy Now and Expose Nightfall began trending worldwide. Even celebrities who had stayed silent before Jay-Z, Rihanna. Drake started liking and sharing cryptic posts about truth and power. And then came another twist. A video surfaced online showing Marcus recorded days before his alleged suicide attempt. In it, he looked tired but determined. "If you're watching this," he said, "it means they found me." But the truth is out there. Project Nightfall isn't just about music. It's about control. And Diddy, he's not the villain they told you he was. The video ended abruptly, cutting to black. Within hours, it was deleted from every platform, but mirrors of it kept reappearing. The internet wouldn't let it die. Inside the prison, Diddy watched the clip on a smuggled phone, his eyes dark and focused. He turned to a fellow inmate and said, "You see that? That's the beginning." Rumors began circulating that Diddy had hidden copies of the Project Nightfall files years ago, stored in encrypted drives scattered across different countries. Some claimed he gave them to trusted allies. Others believed he mailed them to journalists under false names. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. Someone out there wanted those files buried for good. A week later, Jerome Winters received an anonymous call. The voice on the line was distorted, but the message was clear. "Tell your client to stop digging. We already have eyes on his family." Jerome went pale. He rushed to the prison and warned Diddy, who listened silently. Then he said, "They think fear will stop me. But I've lost everything already. They took my freedom, my name, my legacy. What else can they take?" Jerome hesitated. "Your life," he said softly. Diddy looked at him for a long moment. "Then I'll die telling the truth." 2 days later, the unthinkable happened. An explosion ripped through a data storage facility in New Jersey, one reportedly connected to Project Nightfall. Local authorities called it an accident. But online investigators quickly discovered that it was the same facility where Diddy's company once stored private archives. The timing was too perfect, too coincidental. The next morning, Diddy was transferred to a high-security facility for his safety. But insiders claimed it was to cut off his communication with the outside world. His lawyer wasn't even allowed to see him for 3 days during that time. Anonymous posts began flooding social media accounts claiming to have seen or possessed copies of the Project Nightfall files. Snippets of data began leaking mails between high-level executives, coded transactions, and messages hinting at manipulation within the music industry's biggest awards and contracts. Fans were stunned. This was bigger than one man's downfall. It was about how fame, money, and influence could be used to control everything from chart positions to public scandals. Meanwhile, back inside the facility, Diddy's isolation grew. Guards reported that he spent hours pacing, repeating the same phrase under his breath. "They're burning it all." One night, a guard claimed to have overheard Diddy whispering through a vent to another inmate. "Tell them to check under the lights," he said. "They'll know what it means." The next morning, small-time journalist named Maya Lin received an anonymous tip telling her to investigate a specific storage unit in Miami. When she got there, she found a hidden flash drive taped behind a broken light fixture. On it were encrypted files labeled PN_legacy. She uploaded the data to a secure cloud and began decoding it. What she found inside sent chills down her spine, proof of massive financial manipulation, industry blackmail, and coded references to containment operations. Among the documents was one titled Phase 2, and at the bottom of it, a signature that simply read, N. Within 24 hours, Maya disappeared. Her apartment was found empty, her laptop gone. Police ruled it as voluntary disappearance. But those following the story knew better. Inside prison, Diddy was informed of her disappearance by another inmate who had connections on the outside. His face darkened. "They're cleaning house," he murmured. But what no one knew was that Maya had already scheduled an automatic email to send the files to multiple journalists if she didn't log in within 48 hours, and that clock had already started ticking. The story was no longer just about Diddy. It was about the entire system. Now the countdown to its exposure had just begun. 40-8 hours after Maya Lin vanished, the first set of encrypted files hit the internet like a digital earthquake. Newsrooms around the world scrambled to verify what they were seeing. Entire email chains, bank statements, and voice memos from executives surfaced proof that Project Nightfall was real. And it wasn't just about Diddy. It was an entire network of power brokers, hidden deals, and manipulated scandals designed to control the narrative of the entertainment world. The files exposed backdoor agreements between record labels and media companies, revealing how careers were made or destroyed based on who played by the rules and who didn't. One memo even mentioned Diddy by name, labeling him as a potential threat due to independent influence. It was all there, the money trails, the warnings, the efforts to isolate him. As the leaks spread, chaos erupted online. Fans flooded social media, calling for an investigation. Celebrities began unfollowing each other, deleting posts, and going silent. Talk shows tried to spin the story, but no one could control it anymore. For the first time, people were questioning how deep the corruption went, and whether Diddy's imprisonment had been the price of his silence. Inside the high-security facility, Diddy was informed of the leak during a morning head count. One of the guards slipped him a folded piece of paper. On it was a single line: "The files are out." He stared at the words for a long time, his hands trembling slightly. Then, slowly, he smiled for the first time in months. The next few days were chaos for everyone connected to him. The label executives named in the leaks went into hiding. Some resigned abruptly, others claimed the documents were fake. Politicians distanced themselves, while journalists raced to uncover who had sent the files. The phrase Project Nightfall trended for days, dominating every feed, every conversation. And as all of this unfolded, something even stranger happened. The public began to rally behind Diddy again. The man who had once been branded as a villain was now seen as a scapegoat, a casualty of a much larger machine outside the prison. Hundreds of fans gathered again, chanting his name, holding up signs that said "Truth will rise," and he warned us. For the first time since his arrest, the energy wasn't of anger or despair, it was defiance. His lawyer, Jerome Winters, filed for an emergency retrial, citing the leaked evidence and corruption in the original case. It was a long shot, but momentum was building. Several journalists, including those who received Maya's files, testified that they had verified the data's authenticity. The pressure on the Justice Department grew by the hour, but behind the scenes, the danger was still very real. Two of the executives named in the leaks were found dead within days, one in what police called a car accident and another from an apparent overdose. No one believed it was. Coincidence? Jerome received another warning call late one night. "Stop the appeal," the distorted voice said. "We can make this go away quietly. But if you keep pushing, there will be more bodies." He hung up the phone, his hands shaking, and rushed to tell Diddy the next morning. When he did, Diddy just stared at him, calm but cold. "They can't stop it anymore," he said softly. "The truth's already out. Even if they silence me, it's too late." Jerome tried to argue, to convince him to play it safe. But Diddy shook his head. "I'm not afraid of dying anymore," he said. "I'm afraid of them winning." Meanwhile, the world outside was unraveling. Protests broke out in New York and Los Angeles. demanding justice for Diddy and accountability for those exposed in Project Nightfall. Fans shared clips of his old interviews, pointing out moments where he had hinted about forces behind the curtain. Every word he'd ever said was suddenly being reanalyzed like prophecy. And then came the next shock. A leaked recording surfaced of a phone call between two executives trying to coordinate how to contain the narrative. One of them mentioned having handled Reed and Lynn, while the other said, "The only loose end left is Combs." The internet exploded. Millions of people demanded protection for Diddy, fearing that something might happen to him before the retrial. The government could no longer ignore it. Within days, they launched a formal investigation into corruption within the entertainment sector, citing new and credible evidence. It was a massive scandal that shook every corner of Hollywood. But while the world focused on the chaos, something even stranger was happening inside the prison. Guards reported that Diddy had stopped sleeping, spending long hours at his desk writing letters, hundreds of them. No one knew who he was sending them to, but each letter was sealed with the same phrase: "Truth never dies." Then, one morning, without warning, the facility went into full lockdown. Alarms blared, guards ran through corridors, and rumors spread that there had been a breach. When things calmed down hours later, a shocking announcement followed. Diddy had been transferred to an undisclosed location for his safety. No one knew where he went. His lawyer wasn't informed, his family wasn't contacted, and his name disappeared from the inmate database. The internet erupted again. Theories spread like wildfire. Some claimed he'd been assassinated. Others insisted he'd been taken into witness protection. One particularly wild theory said that Diddy himself had orchestrated his disappearance, predicting everything that had happened and planning his exit months in advance. His family broke their silence soon after. Justin posted a video online, his face tense and voice shaking. "We don't know where my father is," he said. "They're saying he's safe, but no one's telling us anything. If you're watching this, please, Dad, just send a sign." The video went viral in minutes. Fans flooded the comments, sending love and outrage in equal measure. "They can't silence the truth," one user wrote. "We're watching." And then, as if the universe was listening, a message appeared on Diddy's official account, a post that no one could explain. It simply read, "The truth survives." It had no caption, no timestamp, and the account was deleted an hour later. But it was enough. The world went into a frenzy again, convinced Diddy was alive and orchestrating everything from the shadows. Weeks passed and the story refused to die. More files leaked, more people were exposed, and the Project Nightfall scandal spread beyond the music industry into politics and media. Every new revelation proved that the system was far darker and more connected than anyone had imagined. Jerome Winters, now working independently, continued to fight for Diddy's official exoneration. He said during a televised interview, whether he's free or not, he's already won. He exposed the machine, but still, no one knew where Diddy was. Some claimed to have seen him in London, others in Jamaica. Blurry photos surfaced online, each one debated endlessly. Was it him, or was it just hope turning into myth? Months later, a documentary titled 50 Months, The Truth Behind the Empire, premiered online. It pieced together footage, leaked files, and interviews with insiders who dared to speak. It ended with a grainy video clip, allegedly sent anonymously to the producers. In it, a man stood on a dimly lit balcony, overlooking a city skyline. His voice, unmistakable yet calm, said, "You can cage a man, but not the truth. They built an empire of lies, and I tore it down from the inside. The rest is up to you." The clip ended there. The internet erupted one final time. People around the world began using the phrase, "Truth never dies," as a symbol of resistance, not just against corruption in the music industry, but against the manipulation of power itself. T-shirts, graffiti, and protest banners carried the phrase like a movement. And somewhere out there, whether in hiding or in spirit, the man once known as Diddy had become something more than a mogul or a scandal. He had become a legend. The 50 months that were meant to break him instead became the catalyst that changed everything, and though no one could say for sure if he'd ever return, one thing was certain: his story wasn't over. Not yet. And that, viewers, is where the story stands, mysterious, unfinished, and more explosive than ever. The man once called the king of hip-hop, the architect of an empire, now a ghost wrapped in secrets and speculation. Diddy's 50 months were supposed to be punishment, but instead they became prophecy. The world thought it had seen the end of him. Yet what if this was only the beginning? What if somewhere out there, watching all of this unfold, waiting for the right moment to reappear and reveal the final truth behind Project Nightfall? Every question still lingers. Was he framed? Did he fake his own disappearance? Who is really pulling the strings behind the scenes? And most of all, what happened to the files that were never released? The fans are still divided, the industry is still in shock, and no one seems to have the full picture. But one thing's for sure: the story of Diddy's 50 months in prison has rewritten everything we thought we knew about power, loyalty, and fame. If you think this is the end, think again. Something tells us there's still another chapter waiting to unfold, another leak ready to drop, another revelation that could change everything. So now it's your turn. What do you believe? Was Diddy a villain, a victim, or a visionary who tried to expose the truth? Let us know your thoughts down below. Drop your theories, your questions, and your wildest guesses in the comments. And if you are hooked on every twist and turn of this story, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this saga isn't over yet. The truth never dies, and neither does the drama. Stay tuned, because the next revelation might be closer than you think.